Hey, Charles. So beautiful to see you today. I'm so happy you're joining us on the Everyday Mystic.
Yes, happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're going to go deep today with you on your own spiritual journey and the awakening that you had, I think, from a few different awakenings. And
Mhm.
I think that's interesting about the spiritual journey. And I don't know if you'll agree with me that there are always new awakenings. It's not just like
Mhm.
this, oh, one thing happens and you're like, I'm awake. It's this unfolding process and you have these really different profound spiritual awakenings and openings, I would say. So I'd love to
Mhm.
get into the depth of that with you, what that was like for you, and then what's led you to the beautiful work that you do now. We'll get into it later too, in talking about the work you bring to the world and
Mhm.
how you help people also spiritually awaken to their gifts and to their healing and to their own self-mastery. But
Mhm.
let's start with you. Tell me where it all began for you.
Yeah, I graduated from Washington State back in 2001, got my degree in kinesiology, minor in health and wellness. And that was inspired by this deep fascination for the greatest technology on the planet, these human bodies. It's not the computers, it's not the smartphones we're on. We tend to forget like the intelligence that's in each and every cell of these sensory suits. And so I was always fascinated by that. And after my degree, I got into fitness and personal training and started my business in San Diego when I moved there and lived the beach life. Like it was really a nice like vacation vibration, laid back, fun chapter of life. And I did notice that I was starting to get into some over consuming patterns. And, this would look like going out on the weekends, partying, staying up late, and then showing up for work and training like 10 clients a day, running on coffee and just burning the midnight oil. And so over time, this pays a toll on the body. And I was initiated. There's like the feather from the universe of, hey, you might want to make some changes and some shifts here to come back into alignment with, your highest purpose. And I didn't listen to that. So then it's like getting hit with a brick in the head, right? It's like a big wake up call. And that might be, dealing with some consequences of taking responsibility for some bad decisions or, um, that inspired me to make some changes and shift some things and cut out some things that weren't helping me in my on my
Mm.
journey. And in that, I ended up falling back into my old patterns, though, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. It's like we want to create change, and we're inspired to, and yet these old habits die hard. And so, found myself on Mammoth Mountain, 2008. This was snowboarding with a couple buddies during a full-on blizzard. It was
Mm.
crazy conditions. There was a whiteout, snow coming from every which way, and I looked at my friends and I'm like, "Hey, there's only one way down. Let's charge." They'd even shut down the lifts because it was so dangerous up there, but we were
Oh,
already at
wow.
the top. So we were charging down this mountain and it was super fun because it's this white abyss, and huge powder, a couple feet of snow. And my friends are ahead of me. About halfway down the mountain, I remember going off a jump that I didn't know was there. And I felt like I just went off a cliff. It was literally like in midair in this white abyss, can't tell where the landing's at. And I freaked out and tensed up. And I remember as soon as I landed, the impact was like a lightning bolt hitting me in the low back. And it was
Mm.
the most excruciating physical pain I'd experienced. And I'm yelling to my friends, hoping that they can hear me. They're already ahead of me, can't hear through the muffled snow. I look at my phone and it's dead. And I'm sitting here with like an 11 on a 10 scale of pain on the middle of a
Mm.
mountain during a blizzard going, uh-oh, I'm in big trouble here. And I can barely move, let alone like stand up. And so it's interesting in those moments, it's like we find another gear or channel an inner Spartan warrior, and had to do whatever it took to get down that mountain. And so that meant like clicking off my board and actually sitting on it and sliding down as far as I could. And then I would keel over and breathe into the pain for a while. And eventually I made it down the mountain. And then I went to go see these doctors and got all these images, and they were showing me how jacked up my spine was, and that I would need surgery as soon as possible or I'd never move the same again. So to hear that was the worst news I could have gotten. And yet, even in a fight or flight state, fear of hearing that news, I chose a natural path of self-healing instead of going under the knife. And that wasn't an easy path, but I'm really grateful that I chose that because, spoiler alert, pain became one of my greatest teachers. And so I remember sitting in my apartment complex in San Diego at the time in so much pain. I could barely crawl to the bathroom. And I finally had the space and was basically forced to feel through a lot of these emotions that I recognized I'd been hiding from or avoiding or stuffing or, all these strategies to not feel. And so in that moment, it was like the shame came up of not even being able to stand up straight, let alone get to work and do anything productive. The fear of would I ever move the same again? And then some deep sadness and grief that was unprocessed from some loss earlier in life. And so I was in this pool of tears and just allowing myself to finally go deeper in these depths of feelings that I hadn't gone before. And I found gold there. It was really beautiful and I was kind of like, man, why have I been avoiding this so much? I feel so clear and light. And so I was able to set an intention while doing a meditation to receiving all answers to healing naturally. And I'll never forget during that meditation, my phone got a ping and I got a message while I was in meditation from a friend I haven't talked to in over 2 years. And he said, hey, I heard that your back's in bad shape. Check out neurokinetic therapy, NKT, the work of David Weinstock. And so this took me down a rabbit hole of connecting a lot of dots for me as to how to get answers through muscle testing from the body as to the source of these aches, pains, injuries, and how to heal. And so I knew this, I got this intuitive ping and got him on the phone and was like, hey, I think you can help me. I'm in so much pain. And he set me up with his top student, Christina, in San Diego at the time. And I remember walking in to get my first session and I looked like Shakira, like stuck in a mid-hip dance move. Like my hips were over to the left, upper body's to the right. And that's a representative of how out of alignment I was with my purpose at the time. Right. And so looking back, it's easy to see this now, but she got me on the table and she started testing muscle groups and we found out that my glutes weren't firing. So I'm like, what do you mean my glutes aren't firing? I have these huge butt muscles. Like, yeah, they're just offline. So I would try to push down and nothing was happening. And so it's really interesting. And she goes, are you a jaw clencher? I said, sometimes. And she said, clench your jaw, and then retested the glutes. And all of a sudden they were back online temporarily. I was like, whoa, that's interesting. So my body had just told us that the neurological traffic jam was my jaw overcompensating. So the signal couldn't get to the big guns down the kinetic chain to my glutes. And so this was wrecking, creating havoc in my body, and dysfunction is going to show up as pain. Pain is the check engine light, right? And just like in our cars, we're pretty diligent about, check engine light. I better change something and get it serviced or take care of our car. And it's almost like sometimes we're better at taking care of our vehicles than we are of these highly intelligent sensory suits. We've just been taught and conditioned to, I just need a pill, or go to the fridge and stuff it, or get on Netflix and escape from it, or get lost in a scroll hole and just find some dopamine on Instagram, right? These like short-term gratification band-aids that don't actually get to the source of what's going on. And in that one session, she showed me how to release my jaw and reactivate the glutes. And we did this for a couple other compensation patterns we found. And I got off the table and was like, what? I can stand up straight. I was like,
Wow.
gave her a huge hug and said, this is my path. I need to learn this. I took all of
Mm.
David Weinstock's courses, became a neurokinetic therapist, and got to help other people understand, this unique information from the body and how to heal and get answers from the body through muscle testing. And that's become one huge tool in, a whole Batman utility belt of self-healing tools over the years. And it's been such a game changer because that changed the trajectory of my life and helped me realign with my purpose. And part of the reason, I came here as a soul in human form. So
Mhm.
that's the short story.
Yeah, I mean, you're living the wounded healer paradigm very deeply, aren't you? I mean, that's to be wounded in such a intense way as you were, and to discover how to listen to your own body, and then
Yeah.
find and then be able to serve others in that way is so beautiful. Now, what I love about the beginning story, I want to go back to that moment of you, a puddle on the floor, having all these new emotions, or this release of emotions that you had not accessed in a long time. What what for you were you what was the experience of being in that emotional state? Did you know that it was connected to your pain at that point, or was it just, I'm just going through this and who knows what this
Yeah.
is?
No, it became highly evident that this was the missing link. I'd been to physical therapists, I'd been to chiropractors, I'd been to all these different modalities, acupuncture, and got very minimal pain relief. And, it's like your keys. It's the last place you look when you lose them, that you actually find, wow, of course, I hadn't addressed these emotional issues that I thought I was just fine. And, I was like Captain Positivity for a great deal of my life, just choosing, better thoughts. And so I wouldn't look often at the deep negativity or heavy emotions. And that served me for some time. That was an upgrade from, very young, loose cannon, quick fuse, kind of overreactive. And I didn't like that about myself early on. So I chose, I'm going to control my emotions and just be stoic and not let anyone rattle my cage. And so back then, that was a huge upgrade from where I was at, but that also limited my capacity for the amount of joy, of bliss, of pleasure that I could experience, because I was only willing to go so deep into the depths of the heavy emotions and the challenging ones. And so that was a huge eye-opening piece for me, because realizing that there was gold there, it was like this treasure chest of self-discovery in the depths of grief, from losing my mom early on, that I thought I'd processed and moved through that. But I can remember sitting next to my brother at 10 years old at my mom's funeral and just trying so hard not to cry at
Mm.
my own mom's funeral, because I'd picked up this message, this, belief from older kids I was hanging out with, that, you don't want to be a wuss, men don't cry, can't show weakness, all these silly beliefs, and become subconscious beliefs that, convinced myself to resist that at the time. And so it took years of layer by layer unraveling this grief that was unprocessed. And so it was fascinating, because it connected so many dots for me. It was just back when I was over consuming a lot. It was, cannabis. I had a pretty unhealthy relationship with that, and was abusing that substance for some time, and was in denial for a period of time. And then realized, denial is not just a river in Egypt. Like, there's something to look at here. And recognized, as I studied and went deep down the rabbit hole with Chinese medicine, recognizing like, oh, wow, lungs, smoking. Lungs represent grief in Chinese medicine. And so it was like this aha moment of, wow, I'm resorting to this coping mechanism to try not to feel the grief of loss. And so, and in those moments of finding this self-discovery of just gold and deeper understanding in the depths of those heavy emotions, opened up, next level of joy and clarity and bliss on the other side, that it was this exciting adventure now. It was like, it inspired me to look and sit deeply with all of the emotions so that I could discover the gold that was there. And one of those was anxiety. And, I think a lot of people can relate. Anxiety, even the word has a charge to it based on our past experiences of it, right? So it can feel like nails on a chalkboard or a constrictive nature. And so I tried everything in the world to avoid it and hide it. And so not a lot of people knew that I had this anxiety going on, because I was good at like building a wall to showing that, but it was limiting me from, getting to speak at bigger events and, sharing more of my message. And I kept getting stuck in my head and overthinking it. And the perfectionist was coming online and all these things. So I literally one day decided two things. One, instead of always trying to feel better, because I had a million biohacks and methods of, raising your vibration and feeling better in the moment, instead of that, allowing myself to feel more. And that catalyzed a deeper awakening and understanding of the intelligence and the gold that lies in each of these emotions, and remembering that we signed up for the full spectrum in this human experience, and there's no running from them. It's like, it's either you resist it when it comes up and it gets stuck as issues in our tissues that we just keep packing with us like a bunch of luggage, or you allow yourself to feel and heal it. And that's like finally letting down this luggage we've been carrying that's so heavy, and like taking a look at what's in there and noticing, oh, wow, I haven't even needed this stuff, and then finding the golden nuggets, the lessons and the blessings. And so that was a game changer for me, because it gave me the courage to sit with anxiety. And this was a scary one for me, because anxieties, it's essentially, being out of alignment with the flow of life, not trusting in the flow of life. So anxiety was like knocking on my door very often, and I wouldn't answer it. And so finally I was like, well, I've tried everything else. Let's sit with this and invite it in, and we'll have some anxiety and see what happens. Right. and so it sounds funny, but this was a revolutionary day of really, like, it was like an old friend that had been knocking at the door with an important message to share with me. And I'd just been ignoring him for so long. And he finally let him in, and he was like, here it is, right smack in my face, my biggest fear. And so that was deathbed regrets. It's like getting to the end of my life. And, I've talked to so many people that have had near-death experiences. I've interviewed, I've dealt with death so much in my life that I recognize how temporary this experience is. And so we are gifted with these amazing God-given gifts that we can choose to share and inspire and help others, or we can let our fears and our ego get in the way and keep us playing small and safe where we think we can survive. But even that comfort zone gets very uncomfortable over time, because we're here for something greater. And those gifts can just kind of eat us up inside if we don't share them. And so it was this huge realization of like, oh, wow, this fear supersedes all these little fears of, is it perfect yet? Am I going to be judged? Will I be rejected? All that stuff, silly child's play compared to deathbed regrets. Like, one day will be my last day here. And can I look back and say, I left it all on the playing field. I shared every message on my heart, shared all the appreciation and the love that I had, and the podcasts and the books and the things that I want to leave behind that can paint this world a more beautiful place than when I got here. And so that was very confronting and actually a beautiful realization for me, because then I could actually befriend fear. It was like a catalytic energy of like, hey, it's time to get to work on this list of ideas and these projects and programs and ways that I know I can help people. And so instead of going out and partying and just numbing out and you know, that was what anxiety was showing me. It's like, if you choose to continue over consuming instead of igniting the creator within you, then I'm going to keep knocking on your door and feeling really uncomfortable, you know? And I was like, wow, what a great friend. And so I've never looked at anxiety the same again. It's been this like really beautiful relationship now, because anxiety is like very similar to the visceral experience of excitement. And so I'm like, oh, great, more excitement. Or I'm like, oh, I'm getting the feather from my friend, the A word that I've been consuming more than I'm creating. And it's time to balance that out and get to work on some of these things that I want to share before I die. And so that was a game changer in my life. Like, that inspired me to create the laser focus method, first group training, create men's groups, and created Empowered Brotherhood, some really potent containers that allowed me to refine and really get to share some of my God-given gifts. And that was like, whoa, getting to see people transform from sharing these things and getting to support them on that journey as an ally and a guide was like this deep level of fulfillment that, yes, I got paid for it, but it was a feeling that's so much more valuable than anything that your bank account can measure, you know? And that's when I knew, I was like, wow, I've been just resorting to these short-term gratification and, you know, the short-term quick fix instead of this path of long-term fulfillment. And there is gold there. So it's been, that was a huge awakening for me. And that started with allowing myself to feel more instead of always trying to feel better. And then actually sitting with anxiety and recognizing it as a friend, inviting him in for tea.
The feeling more is it, and being with what's already there rather than adding more things in is such a big part of my path too. And I've realized this over the years that, there are a lot of beautiful practices out there. Don't get me wrong. A lot of beautiful substances, lots of beautiful external things that can trigger and awaken or elongate or do impact us in some way on this journey. But if we're only always out there attaching ourselves to those external hacks, like you called them, or anything, it could be good or bad things, we are not bringing those gifts home, right? It's all about the internalization of those experiences and how we then alchemize it within ourselves and take those lessons in. So I just love that you have had that experience of just being fully with all parts of yourself, fully with all depths of the emotion. And it doesn't end, does it? Right. We get to experience all this depth and all of this mystery that we hold within. And the more we do, we get to celebrate life in a whole new way, don't we?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's been such a blessing. And so emotional intelligence is a big part of what I get to share, but deeper than that, anxiety is one of those words with a charge. And so is the capital T word, right? So a lot of people now are to a level in their journey where they're aware of some childhood traumas that have been showing up consistently in their adult life and creating these internal blocks that then show up in our reality. And it can be, self-sabotaging behaviors, something as simple as overeating, over-consuming, to like, creating, ripples and problems in our relationships. And when we can step back and see from an eagle eye perspective and take full responsibility for each of our emotions and our actions, then it's like bringing our power back. And it can be a tough, natural pill to swallow,
Mhm.
but it's so worth it to recognize like where we have pointed the finger. Oh, it was this person's fault, or, playing the blame game when there's always these fingers pointing back to us, at, where the source of that's coming from. And anywhere we're placing blame is just where we're giving our power away. And so, a lot of that became very clear to me and allowed me to dive deeper into this work and create, about a decade ago, a process that empowers people to heal their own traumas. And this is something that, we didn't learn in school. We weren't taught how to sit with your emotions and feel it to heal it. And, the level of intelligence that is waiting for us there when we do have a process, a step-by-step process to go to the source of where some limiting beliefs are created, right? That we created early on in our life when we were presented with a challenging event and experience. And a lot of times we weren't able to process those emotions fully. So that energy becomes stuck. And this process is really powerful because I would say, as an evolving human being, the ability and the skill of being able to identify limiting beliefs that are showing up in your experience, blocking you from sharing your God-given gifts and your heart's greatest desires, is one of the best skills and abilities to have. And so that's what inspired the inner peace process. And it is a step-by-step process for going to the source of where these childhood traumas, and giving the love, support, and safety that we didn't have in those experiences, giving that to ourselves now. It's
Mhm.
essentially like rescuing these younger parts of us and integrating them. And I have been honored to witness so many dreams coming true on the other end of this work, starting with me, of course. It was like I had to learn the hard way, all these, how to get through the depths of these challenges and initiations and find the lessons and blessings. I learned the hard way. So now I can teach an easier way. And so it's been truly an honor, to help point out landmines and, have a process for people to create positive change in their life, instead of resorting back to old patterns. And one of my, my two of my greatest inspirations are my daughters. It's like
Mm.
the more you dive into this inner work, you realize you're not just able to heal thyself. These are all generational wounds, right? The abandonment wound, the mother wound, the father wound. This is stuff that's been carried on for generations of this like conflict and creating these consistent traumas throughout generations that we have the opportunity to heal and resolve for ourselves. And by doing that, it also frees up for our children. And that's
Mhm.
the most exciting thing for me, because it's like, man, if they don't have to be initiated with the same abandonment wound that I had to, learn from and go through the muck in, and it's like, imagine what's possible for my girls
Mhm.
when they don't have all these crazy traumas that us and our ancestors had to go through. Then it's like pure imagination combined with, their intelligence, and they're like straight from source. These young girls are some of my greatest teachers. And so they're
Mhm.
reminding me the, joy, the natural state of being in full presence and feeling fully your emotions in real time and allowing, to navigate those waters. And so it's really inspiring to get to dive in on this work, because every time I'm releasing an old program, old subconscious belief that no longer serves me, I'm also releasing that for my children and future
Mhm.
generations.
Mhm. Absolutely, and having that that really potent catalyst in front of you to keep the work going
Mhm.
is so beautiful. Uh, you mentioned God earlier and your God-given gifts. So do you feel like tell us what your interpretation of or your experience of God is?
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like this is a great question because to me, to try to even put that into words or conceive mentally, I feel like our mental acuity isn't even a fraction of what's possible and can't even, put into words what all of creation is, right? It's like that there's, in this human experience, it's hard to see it all. And so we just get these moments and these glimpses in this, we can intentionally increase that connection. And so for me, it's like one of the greatest ways to honor God, the universe source, is to enjoy its creations, to, you know, get to really take time in nature. It's like nature's
Mhm.
always reminding us the way that's become my church is nature, getting out into nature, singing, playing instruments with my girls and going on nature walks. That's how I connect with God on a consistent basis. And it's beautiful because in that scenario, it's like reminding us always, it's like if you are stuck in your mind with lots of problems, then take a couple deep breaths, take a 12-inch elevator ride into your heart, go for a walk in nature and watch how the answers reveal themselves, right? It's like, oh, of course, my wish of this thing can't come in yet because I'm still holding on to all this stuff that I've been unwilling to unpack and resolve for good. And so it's like we look at the trees every fall, these beautiful trees just let go of their leaves, knowing that that allows them to grow deeper roots, taller branches, and even more vibrant and beautiful leaves the next season. And so it's like, how come we can't let go so easily in the human experience? It's like we've been so conditioned to hoarding and wanting to hold on to things and no, I need that. I can't get rid of this, and so it's like, the more we can let go of, it gets to be really exciting because that's allowing more space for our heart's desires, our dreams, and what we really came here for to come into our experience. And that's just one example of how I communicate with God and just listen.
Mhm.
He's like,
Yeah.
God gave us 2 ears and one mouth, so that's a
Mhm.
reminder of to listen, twice as
Mhm.
much than we speak. And that's been a great reminder for me and get to enjoy that out in nature.
Yeah, nature is absolutely my church and spiritual place. Also, what advice would you give to someone who is really in their head,
Hmm.
really encumbered by their monkey mind, maybe in high states of anxiety or depression, and has nature? They're like, okay, I see nature, it's there, I'm going to go in it. What advice would you give them to actually allow it to enter into them?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it starts with one of the greatest tools that's right under our nose, breath. And
Mm.
so when we are in a panic state, fight or flight, anxious, we're in our mind, right? And in that space, it's hard to access that connection to something greater. And so just by allowing for an expansion breath, this is what I call and teach. It's an opportunity to feel that you can breathe in every direction instead of just anteriorly, right? And so
Mhm.
when you learn this, it's really easy, and you combine that with a longer exhalation than your inhalation, and it gives your mind a cadence. It's like giving your mind a simple task. I breathe in for 4 and I exhale for 8, and I'm expanding in
Mhm.
every direction. And this alone can drop down that heightened fight or flight state into a little bit closer to a calm, rest and digest mode. And that's where we can allow for our bodies to heal, our intelligence and our connection with, creator to ensue. That's where a lot of the magic's happening. But
Mhm.
we can't we just experience glimpses of that if we're always in our head in go, go, go mode. And that's fascinating because that's oftentimes a really, common coping mechanism and addiction is
Mhm.
doing, because it's, oh, you're busy. Oh, okay. Yeah, I get it. And we wear this like busy badge of like,
Mhm.
I'm just, oh, I'm doing a lot, always out, blah, blah, blah.
So
We
busy.
run ourselves thin, right? It's always like, well, do you like being busy? Do you enjoy that? Or, giving yourself rest. And so when we use tools like that, it allows you to tap into that dance between the masculine and feminine energy within us. The right side, as we know, represents the masculine side, the doing, and the left side represents the feminine side, the being and receptivity. And so, there's a dance going on within us. And as we improve that balance and that harmony and that dance, then you'll notice as your relationships enhance with, opposite and same gender. And so it's fascinating to witness because it can all start with your breath, and then you can feel more connected to something greater. I guide a simple visualization elevator ride from the mind into the heart space. And we used to think that the mind was this almighty, like this is where we kind of imagine our awareness, right? Because we see through our eyes. So we're like, where's your awareness? Oh, it's right behind the eyes. Is it? Because you can modulate that, right? And so when we let our awareness drop into the space of our heart, this space of the heart has been proven in science to have an electromagnetic charge of 5,000 times bigger than the mind, meaning this is where we connect from energetically. And so it's when we drop into this space, there is the ability to not only feel and heal, but also to connect with our heart's greatest desires and our biggest wishes and our dreams, and allow ourselves to experience it now and invite that in every cell. And so that's an entire course I teach about visioneering, and it allows you to become that and experience that now instead of chasing carrots your whole life, trying to do all the things to get this number in the bank account or to finally get that house. It's like you can take steps to experience that on a consistent basis, and then watch as you are a lighthouse and just magnetize the people, places, the experiences and opportunities. All the puzzle pieces start to fall into place to allow for that to happen. And it becomes really exciting. And not a lot of that is, up here in the mind. That's dropping into the intelligence of the heart.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, we complicate the shit out of things as
Mm-hmm.
humans, don't we? And the simplicity of breath,
Mm-hmm.
breathing, full breaths, taking that fully in, the simplicity of, stepping out and being in nature or
Mm-hmm.
spending time with your feet on the ground, the simplicity of allowing natural processes to heal
Yeah.
something in your body. I mean,
Right.
it seems like we've gotten in our own way in
Mm-hmm.
so many respects, right? And um, I want to go and talk more specifically about self healing.
Mm-hmm.
You've been on this journey yourself, and I know it's also something that you guide people through in transforming their pain. And when I read pain from you, meaning how you help people, I read both physical and emotional pain.
Mm-hmm.
So transforming that pain into purpose by tapping into their own abilities
Right.
to self heal and to be the master of their own
Yep.
domain. So let's talk about that a bit more. What someone, let's say, who, yes, I mean, absolutely everyone listening should go to Charles's website and check out all of the beautiful offerings that he has, and courses and coaching and the events and retreats. But just for someone listening today who may feel, even because I know taking those steps sometimes to
Mhm.
reach out to a coach, to reach
Yep.
out to a healer, to reach out to a practitioner, and have that energetic exchange start to happen is a lot. It's a
Yeah.
huge first step for many people. So what's a baby step
Yeah.
for someone who may want to really just start to tap into the power of their own healing?
Right. So first is remembering that we are our own greatest healers, right? And so then when you get triggered or you're dealing with pain, it might be physical pain, emotional pain, or even confronted with some childhood traumas, right? There's some tools that you can use, some self-inquiry questions that can begin setting your reticular activation. That's like combining your mind with your heart so that your mind can be in heart coherence and receive some of the answers and allow yourself to feel and heal more. And so one, start with a 4-8 expansion breath, right? This takes us from that fight or flight state, elevator ride into the heart space. Here we're feeling a little more safe, more love, more supported. And then it's like these 3 questions can be really powerful for any challenge, any trigger, anything that's coming up. And the first one is, how is it happening for me? And this is a really good question because it's taking us out of victim mode, right? Where it's like, yeah, these things, terrible things might have happened to us when we were younger, right? And that might not even have been your fault. And yet, is there anyone more responsible than you for resolving it? Right? And so taking responsibility and recognizing, like, we can choose victim mode and point the finger, giving our power away, but that doesn't allow us to heal and resolve it for good. So this first question is, how is it happening for me? And that takes us out of like, oh, I can't believe this is happening to me, right? And that prolongs the experience of suffering. And so that gives your mind, the instrument of the heart, something, it's like a heat seeker missile. It puts it on your reticular activation. Reticular meaning retina. Your lens at which we see our reality is activated to the quality of the questions that you ask. So how is this happening for me? 2, what needs to change, right? Like, what is it in my life that is out of alignment? It's like getting real clear with your truth that I can change and make a shift with, right? And that is a big one. It can be confronting, but you'll start to notice answers will reveal themselves very synchronistically. And they might not come instantaneously, but while you're out on a walk with nature, you might notice you get some hints and some cues. And then the third one is really also setting your reticular activation to what are the lessons and blessings to receive from this initiation, this experience, this challenge, right? And that's where we can begin to see our challenges, even trauma, as growth opportunities. You know, it's like we signed up for this human experience and all these challenges here in Contrastville, where we can experience light and dark and heavy emotions and feeling good and all the things in between. And so these 3 questions can really catalyze deeper awareness and some self-healing and allow you to receive some of the answers on that journey. And then for, like you mentioned, though I went through this initiation too of like, oh man, life's so hard right now. Like I'm just, it comes in threes, everything's happening at once. I can't handle it all. And I'm just like down and out. And in those times, I had this like tooth and nail trying to figure it out on my own and trying to just like, uh-oh, my stuff's coming up. Time to go to the Batman cave and just like deal with it myself until I can come out superhero status again, right? This is kind of the scenario that was going on in my mind back then. And there's just an easier way. I had to learn the hard way through that one. finally, when I called in, set the intention, and started calling in and taking action to reach out for support with those that I felt intuitively called to, catalyzed some massive positive changes in my life. And so, those that are in that space where you've been recognizing the same patterns showing up over and over, it might be in your relationships or with your health, or the same pains showing up in your body, then tune into the intelligence within your body. And who are those people that you feel an intuitive hit of, like something deeper sense of like, wow, there's something I can learn from them, or, have the courage to reach out, and it can save you from, a path of landmines, and it can help accelerate things on your journey. And so, have the courage to reach out for support when you need it. We all deserve it. And so, that's a big one. It can catalyze a lot of shifts. And then we can begin to see some of our blind spots as well, and recognize that we're not supposed to do this whole journey by ourselves. I think especially with men, there's a lot of men that just feel like this heroic, like, man, I'm down and out. I think a lot of men can relate. It's like so hard. We get more in the isolation mode, because we feel like we have to be the provider and all this pressure. And so it's like, instead of asking for help, can be the scariest thing sometimes, because that involves being vulnerable and actually sharing our truth. And that can be scary AF for men. And yet, anytime you feel fears and are afraid of something, then there's gold on the other side that awaits for you to discover on the other side of fear. And so, just like with anxiety, I've developed a really healthy relationship with fear, and I appreciate it. It's kind of like like time to put on the lens of curiosity and lean into this to see what's on the other side. So, can discover.
It's a beautiful perspective. I mean, to look at all of these things that we would deem negative, right? A trauma, a fear, a challenge, some shitty thing going on in your life, and change the perspective on that. And be like, God, this is an opportunity. It's a gift. It's the universe tapping me here, right? Knocking on your door, as you were saying earlier, and just starting to open up the listening, and starting to open up to the lessons. So I love those tips that you offered on how to start doing that. And for men specifically, being, as you mentioned, maybe raised where they needed to be more stoic, or were conditioned to be more stoic and closed off and less vulnerable. And it's not that women being raised, we certainly have our own burdens to bear as far as the conditioning that we were given too. But I feel like with men, specific to what you're saying, of not necessarily reaching out or feeling that they can reach out to others, or maybe it all just becomes on the weight of their partner, their spouse in the end. But having that group of men that you can speak with, share with, get vulnerable with. When you were talking about that earlier, about the men's group that you started, I was picturing like cheering and then crying, cheering and then crying, and all these, this depth of emotion that you would go through. I don't know if that's accurate for what you ended up doing.
It is. And everything in between. It's literally like all of that is welcome. All of you is welcome here, which, you don't have to, having a container where you don't have to fake like everything's okay. When people ask you how you doing, you don't have to say, oh, I'm good, everything's great, just because we've been conditioned to say that. Like, how many times do we lie and share that answer just because it's been conditioning, when actually there's a lot going on, and there's a lot to unpack, and there's, we could use some support. So that,
and also the tools of how do we respond to someone saying, my day sucked. it's been awful. I'm going
Right.
through all this when they were just asking you the simple question of, oh, how you doing?
Right.
So teaching empathy
Hmm.
and how to respond too is so valuable, and being able to support each other in those ways. So the group that you started, is that still running? Can people still uh, join with you or join together in that way?
Yeah, I create different groups now, and some of them are co-ed. We have Freedom from Pain was our last one, and this was a 8-week deep dive into aches, pains, past injuries that continue showing up, how to gain the lessons and blessings through that and heal naturally. That will be an online program. It's almost finished, so it's a really easy way to access those codes, that knowledge, in a do-it-yourself version. And then there's new upcoming group trainings available as well, which is more of this container setting that we're discussing, and that's more co-ed work, men and women. So it's exciting.
Very
Mhm.
exciting. And people can access that through your website to sign up. Or do they, are you doing these in-person uh, trainings, containers and retreats uh, all in one place? Are you doing them in where you live, or are they
Mhm.
spread out in different locations?
Yeah, great question. So I have clients all over the world, from South Africa to Ireland and Canada, and we work virtually. I have some one-on-one clients, and then we do group containers from people all over the world that are virtual. And then we also have retreats that are often held here in Austin. And our friends have this incredible land. Talk about connecting with nature. This is a whole village that they've created, these beautiful luxury tree houses. And it's this like secret spot that we love hosting retreats at, because it has that like
Mhm.
unique nature medicine. And so yeah, it's all the things. And we have our next upcoming one is next month, and it's a couples day retreat and soak in the mineral springs, which is going to be really exciting.
Ooh, oh yeah, maybe Mark and I'll come down
Yes,
for that.
yes.
That is a magical spot where
Mhm.
you're talking about,
Mhm.
really incredible. So for those that are feel like they're in an initiation,
Mhm.
that this is, they've recognized now through listening to this, okay, this thing that's going on is actually a call to my soul to awaken to my deepest potential, or to my highest self, or to something that isn't this.
Yeah.
What would you recommend their next step is?
Yeah. So I offer a free alignment activation, and this is to come into full sovereignty. And I call it sovereignty because it's like reclaiming your own life force energy in each and every cell of your being. Because we pick up so much stuff, we have all these, we get connected and carry so much stuff that it's an opportunity. It's a 22-minute guided alignment activation with movement, breath work, and meditation. And if it feels amazing, then you know it's working. And it allows you to, drop from the mind into the heart space, use some of these breath techniques and movement to really drop into your body and experience reclaiming your sovereignty again. And from there, you can gain a lot of clarity as to, okay, this is the next step in my healing journey, or who are those people that I intuitively feel called to reach out to. So a lot of people use this as their good morning ritual. It's amazing for that. And it's great for anytime you're feeling your energy off, or you're in a funk, or, you catch yourself in a pattern of isolating yourself. Then start with this alignment activation and watch how you can shift your energy in such a short time. And then for those that want to dive deeper and gain a tool like the inner peace process, it's such a game changer, because anytime you're feeling a trigger, it's like, ooh, interesting. I can put on the lens of curiosity, or I can resort to the mind's old pattern of time to go to the fridge, stuff it. This feels uncomfortable. Let's go on Instagram, look for dopamine and pleasure. Instead, now you have a step-by-step process that you can go through to go to the source of where that trauma, that uncomfortable feeling, the trapped emotions, and the subconscious beliefs were created in the first place, and how to resolve that and reparent that version of yourself. And that is the most simple and amazing medicine that I have to offer this planet. And it's such an honor to get to share this, because if this was taught in school, we would have a totally different society. And it's fascinating to imagine. And so that's a great place to start. That, your breath, deep breath, moving from the head to the heart space. And when you're there, because the mind is like, what's in it for me? Like, what can I get out of this? Or blah, 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 problem. And then you take those deep breaths, drop your awareness into your heart space. And it's like, oh yeah, look at everything I have to give, right? Totally different operating system. And so when you're in heart coherence, then the mind can become a beautiful instrument of the heart. And that's what's great about the alignment activation. For those that are interested in that, it's charlesclay.coach. Just scroll to the bottom. As soon as you join the newsletter at the bottom, then you'll get that video, that guided alignment activation. And I'm excited to hear how you guys feel from that, because it is a game changer. If you guys don't have a morning practice or some tools you can use when you're feeling your energy off, this is a game changer. And there's the laser focus method, which is amazing for people that feel like they're stuck in procrastination, perfectionism, over consuming. And yet they know there's a deeper part of them that's here as a creator to share some powerful stuff. That is low hanging fruit, super high value, low price, online do-it-yourself program that is a game changer for upgrading your focus and working smarter than harder so that you can share more of your God-given gifts and not have any deathbed regrets.
Yes. Hallelujah to that. No deathbed regrets. All beautiful and positive gifts you shared with us today, Charles. charlesclay.coach. Go to the website and he shared so much incredible wisdom with us just in this hour conversation. But I know when you go to his website, you're going to find and be led to exactly what you need. And that's the beautiful thing when you start opening up to following your own intuition, is that you will be guided and you will find exactly what you need. On his website, he's got so many beautiful offerings, this free offering when you sign up for his email list, and then all of the deeper offerings as well. And then, come into Austin, go to a deep dive event at the Treehouse place, because it only opens up more and more. The more you seek, the more you gain, and the more that you tap into open-hearted people like Charles, the more that you get to open up to your own gifts and to receive all the things that you're here to receive and all of the things that you're here to do. So thank you, Charles, for being such a beautiful light in the world and sharing everything that you did today and everything you do every day.
I appreciate you. It's truly an honor. Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing and aligning in your Dharma. You're amazing. So many gifts you have to share. So to be here right now, get to deep dive in these conversations, it's quite a treat. Appreciate you.
You too, brother.